We are with you, Grant Napier and Sean Salisbury. And this being a Tuesday, we got a lot to reflect on. Last night's unbelievable game with the Rams and the 49ers. We'll talk about that. We got college football. You got a big game going on this weekend in the Big Ten, as you got Michigan State at Ohio State. We'll see if Oregon can go and beat a team that they should beat on the road in Utah. But those are some big games. But, Sean, I got to ask you, because you and I talked about this last week after the Titans went in and beat up on the Rams. And again, I'm looking at the Rams last night, not just Matthew Stafford, but I'm looking at a defense that just got manhandled by the 49ers. I mean, how the hell do you explain that?
I don't know how you explain anything in the league, Grant. Great to be with you. I mean, it's crazy. We can go through this 6 degrees of separation, right?
Yeah.
One week it's this, and yet the team we thought would go away, the Tennessee Titans, are winning without Derrick Henry. It's fascinating. And,
yep.
and the 49ers now are back in the hunt, and Garoppolo looks sharp the last 2 or 3 weeks. They ran the ball, 44 times last night, which is crazy. And everybody had the Rams winning. Odell Beckham's going to join in, and he had 2 catches for 18 yards. And I will say this, is we both Stafford guys. You've asked the question before, and it begs it. What evidence do you have that Stafford's going to be great in January in the postseason? And it's not just him. Where's the evidence that he'll be great other than sheer talent and he's on a better team? But we still got to see that. And so, because he's not used to, I know we're not in January yet, but we're starting to creep towards that time of year, Grant, and going on the road. And seems like the 49ers know how to beat the Rams on a regular basis. Rams hadn't won a game in 400 plus days in their own, or the 49ers in their own building. And they finally defended their building last night. And Kyle's team looked good. And I was thinking about this yesterday. Have you ever noticed when Jimmy Garoppolo, I think he's the most, what's the word I'm trying, what's the phrase, what am I trying to put on this? When they win, do you realize nobody ever gives him credit? Have you ever noticed that?
Never.
It's always defense and run game.
Yep.
Always. Even in their Super Bowl year, Jimmy happened to be a guy along for the ride, even when he plays well. Yet, if they lose and Jimmy puts up good numbers, it's Garoppolo's fault. It's today. The first thing I see when I'm after last night is people talking about, Jimmy was efficient, but it's kind of a push him aside. But man, they ran it great, and their defense went well. The guy can't win for losing, man. It's crazy.
Here's what the deal is, in my opinion. And I don't know if it's as much as the media, but I get this sense. Fans want Jimmy Garoppolo to fail because they're salivating over Trey Lance, who clearly is not ready yet. I know you and I have disagreed on this, but he'll get his time. We really haven't,
though, Grant. We really haven't disagreed. I thought Jimmy should have started, but if you're not going to make the playoffs, then you should play the guy that if Jimmy's not going to be there. But now they've gotten themselves to a better record now and a chance. So I'm with you, and Trey Lance needs to prove accuracy. So I'm with you. I just think if you know you're going to get rid of him, you're not going to the playoffs. Eventually, you got to give Lance a chance.
The reality is there's only one rookie quarterback this year that looks like he should be on the field, and that's Mac Jones in New England. None of the other rookie quarterbacks you can look at and go, oh, yeah, that person's definitely the best quarterback on their team. That's how I view it. Now, that doesn't mean they shouldn't be playing. As you have pointed out, if you're not winning anyway, then you need to get ready for the future. The Chicago Bears are a perfect example of that. But in San Francisco's case, I really do get the feeling that fans still are bent out of shape because of what happened in the fourth quarter in the Super Bowl 2 years ago against Kansas City when Garoppolo missed Kittle on a couple of wide open passes. And I don't think they've forgotten about that. I think it's unfair because I'm with you. When the 49ers win, Jimmy Garoppolo plays very well, and nobody says a damn word about him. I just really believe that so many people in San Francisco and Northern California that are 49er fans keep on hearing about this Trey Lance this, Trey Lance that. He's got that magnificent arm, as you know. And I think they just want him to play. And I think for that reason, Garoppolo just gets shit on. I really believe that.
Yeah, so what happens if Trey Lance plays, and upside's a big word we use, potential and upside. Jimmy's been a solid player when healthy. Grant, I think he's like 26 or 27-12 as a starter. You know, his record as a starter. And if you ever also notice, and I like Kyle, but when they win, Kyle gets a ton of credit. But when they lose, he's untouchable. It's like got to be some other. Now there's starting to be whispers about he's got maybe have too much on his plate, and I'm one that said it. GM, head coach, play caller. Yep. And that it's okay to be the GM when you got help from a guy who's been a long-standing football guy. John Lynch is still learning the front office business too, and I think John's going to be great. But it's just so much on his plate. Last night looked like what Kyle Shanahan wanted to do: run it, mix in the throw, and get out of there with the win and play really good defense. But there are going to come a time, as we've seen, they're going to have to get in the shootout and throw and win in the NFC. It's just a fact. But I don't know why, as much as I say, well, if you're not going for it and go all in, you traded. I mean, you sent a loud message to Garoppolo, and kudos to him by when you traded for Lance. But what a cool bastard is Jimmy for never blaming anybody else, never making excuses, still showing up, teammates loving, still competing, and trying to do everything he can to be. He's a pro. Jimmy, just because you get paid doesn't make you a professional. Jimmy Garoppolo is a professional, and I root for the guy because, you know what, I like a guy who's not making excuses and isn't all bent out of shape and demanding trades and all that. But he does. I'm with you. I think there's a part of the people say, well, he's going to be replaced anyway, so I hope he fails so we can get the other guy in there sooner. Yet when he wins, it's like, well, we won, but there's always a but behind his name, and I don't think it's fair to him. I really don't.
You know, the other side of the equation is you talked about, we talked about this last week, Stafford in January. They got to get to January 1st. I mean, these last 2 weeks, they've gotten their ass kicked. They got dominated at home by Tennessee on both sides of the line of scrimmage. Last night, they were embarrassed, and it's not just Stafford. So I look at that defense. They couldn't stop the run, as you pointed out. They couldn't stop the pass. This is supposed to be one of the top-tier defenses in the National Football League with stars all over the field. And the last 2 weeks, quite frankly, they've been pushed around and they've been manhandled. So why, if I'm a Rams fan, why should I think that's all of a sudden going to change this coming week?
I have no idea, other than it's almost if they don't finesse you to death, and they don't run the ball real well. We know that. And Stafford, if they don't finesse you to death and make every play on the planet, matter of fact, if Cooper Kupp plays average, they're not going to score much, in truth. So, Grant, I don't believe you can turn physicality on and off. I don't. During a season. I believe that you either got that or you don't. Now, sometimes you're a little more physical in those days when you go lift, you feel a little stronger. But they're going to have to implement that. I don't believe finesse teams win Super Bowls. I don't. I think they can get around and hover. When people say, what about Kansas City? Kansas City won their Super Bowl. They ran it efficiently. Their offensive line dominated your ass off. The front seven got after it, and they used the screen as the run game to help. So finesse teams rarely, I'm not going to say never, but finesse teams rarely end up holding the Super Bowl trophy. I don't know. And we crowned the Rams champions, or at least NFC. When they beat the Buccaneers, they were the straw that stirs the drink. Now they're in a fight for the damn lives, and the 49ers aren't going away, and Green Bay's there, and Tampa's. I mean, the NFC's up and down with 5 teams that can win the whole damn thing, so we'll see. But it was a great effort, and I'm not talking about a smart effort. The effort should be there anyway. A smart effort by the 49ers last night when really not very many people gave them much of a shot.
All right, I want to talk about your team, the Raiders. Has everything caught up with them? I mean, 2 weeks ago, they lose to a bad New York team on the road. Again, that was a couple days after the Ruggs tragedy, so I kind of get that. But you come back home, I thought that the Chiefs were a perfect opponent for the Raiders coming off a bad loss. Because to me, if you can't get up, if you can't play your best football against that team, Sunday night, the bright lights at home, what I saw would give me real concern if I'm a fan of the Raiders. So I look at this team and I want to ask you, how much do they miss the deep threat of Ruggs? It doesn't seem like they can, extend the field at all right now based on the 2 games that I've seen. And how much could it be that, everything's finally catching up with them, or do you think that's just a bullshit excuse? I'm talking about Gruden 5 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, Ruggs. Am I trying to make too much of that? Am I making too much of that?
No, I don't think so, Grant. And I also, maybe, just maybe, their talent doesn't say Super Bowl or playoffs. I'm talking about the overall combination of it. They were playing really good football. Then they got tested against a Kansas City Chiefs team that hasn't been playing great football. And you don't knock the quarterback around very much and he throws 50 times, you got problems. You got to generate more of that. And I think you're onto something. Even if Ruggs wasn't, when you throw a guy out there with great speed, the way, if I'm a defensive coordinator that I know could turn the game upside down and take the top off of coverage, is I have to defend that during the practice week. I have got to be aware of it. So it'll use up practice time, because every coach will tell you 2 things. Don't give up, don't get dominated in the run game, defensive coordinator, and we can't give up the chunk plays. And we know Kansas City is going to make chunk plays. They always do. And if you can't match them, you're in trouble. I think it's a combination of it, the constant grind and wear of what's gone on off the field with them. The having to keep I don't want to say a happy face, but a business-like face, knowing that that people want to talk more about that than they do your football, unfortunately for you. And lastly, that when this guy and this guy, when you start to lose players, man, it's only a matter of time before you're fighting and scrambling around to stay afloat as a football team. So, and the truth is, they've got some skilled players and some really good players, but the truth is, did anybody go into the league this year saying that the Raiders were going to win the division? No, we thought it'd be the Chiefs and the Chargers. So they're actually about where we thought they'd be. The hot start teased us, and as a lifelong Raider fan, I've seen this movie the last decade a bunch.
Yes.
So, and I'm not burying them by any stretch of the imagination, but they've got to find a way to sift through all the stuff that they have to sift through. And guys that weren't playing as much or as well need to get back into taking care of their business. And first and foremost, you can't let a quarterback have his way like that. There's too many good ones in the league.
Yeah.
And when your quarterback's good and the other quarterback plays better, you're in some trouble. And Kansas City played about as complete offensive game, at least throwing the ball, that they can play. And that's without even being devastating in the run game, which they don't need to be one of the few teams that doesn't to win.
Interesting, when we talk about rookie quarterbacks, for whatever reason, we don't hear a lot about Trevor Lawrence because he's playing in Jacksonville and we know they're terrible. How much of Lawrence's struggles are the team that he's on, the people that are around him, and how much is it because Trevor Lawrence is just not playing well? Are you surprised with what you're seeing with him in Jacksonville?
No, I actually, after the first handful of games, there's been a spot 3 or 4 weeks that when I watched him, he was actually playing some pretty damn good football. Now, the ball hit the ground a lot this past week, and he wasn't very good, but that's going to happen on a team that doesn't have a whole lot of players. Think about this. He's the first pick of the draft, so expectations are there for him. You've got to build a team around him. You've got a first-time NFL head coach who's still trying to figure out how to do it his own damn self, who's been through his own issues off the field. Mm-hmm. You start to look around and piece it together, and then yet we still expect Trevor Lawrence to go out and, are we putting the same expectations on Justin Fields? Are we putting the same expectations on Trey Lance? Are we putting the same expectations on Zach Wilson? For one reason, I guess we don't want to give Trevor Lawrence a hall pass, and I'm not willing to give him a hall pass, but I'm okay with the way he's playing, Grant, now, not each week. But I think he's going to be a monster in the league, if that's what you're asking. I do.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
If I stuck Trevor Lawrence in New England as a rookie, he'd be a lot better. Mac Jones? He'd be a lot better. Now, listen, there is no doubt in my mind that Mac Jones is clearly, if we redid this draft, Mac Jones would be the second player taken, probably. Still, Trevor Lawrence would still be the first player because we're saying, well, okay, Mac Jones is going to be a really good player and maybe a friggin' great one. Yeah. But we look at the potential. We love potential, Grant. We love it in the NBA. We love it in baseball. And we look at the production of Mac Jones, but think about Mac Jones. He's got the best coach in the world, head coach. Yep. He's got one of the great offensive coordinators in the league who's putting him in a successful position every week. And the ball, his processing of information and knowing how, who, what, and where to throw it is as good as any rookie. Now, people say, what about Justin Herbert? Herbert was far more physically gifted than Mac Jones. Sure. And Herbert's a bright guy. But Mac Jones, he gets through stuff about as quick as you can get through it. And he's well coached. So you look at Mac Jones has an advantage. I said early in the season, if Trey Lance would have started from the beginning and all those 49ers were healthy, that was the best roster going into the season, right? So he would have had a chance, and he's still not ready to go yet and play yet. And he needs some accuracy thing and some understanding work. But Mac Jones, and Steve Sarkisian and the coordinators he's had, they put him under a lot of duress and a lot of different stuff so he'd maximize his reach mentally and emotionally in college, which he grabs that stuff out of thin air pretty quickly. And McDaniels knows how to put him in a good position. So the upside and potential of Lawrence says he's going to be a really good player. He's going to go. We knew he'd go through it, but I love this, Grant, for a big reason. I don't believe great quarterbacks have a red carpet rolled out for them their entire career. I believe most of them. There is the aberration. Marino started off so fast, Patrick Mahomes, and it turned out great for Danny in his career, and it's turned out great for Mahomes. But Mahomes didn't start as a rookie, but one game, and getting kicked in the teeth will tell me something at the end of this year. Which one of these cats is not mentally or emotionally tough enough to handle it? It looks that Lawrence is. It looks that Trevor Lawrence is emotionally and mentally tough enough to handle being browbeat as the first pick and having some good games and some bad games, the light switch will go on. Trevor Lawrence will be a great player in this league.
You just said something that kind of surprised me. You said if the draft were held all over again, you believe Mac Jones would go second to the Jets. Let's just say if the Jets took Wilson still, do you think there's any way in the world the Niners would take Jones knowing what they know now? Because we all thought Mac Jones was going to San Francisco 3, and we heard the rumors that, at the end of the day, they talked Shanahan into it, or Shanahan talked too much. I can't remember what the word was there, but the point is, we all thought Mac Jones was going to San Francisco 3, and they didn't take him. But you think now if they could go back and do it again, they would?
Yeah, now that doesn't mean that they don't think Trey Lance is going to be great. But knowing what you know now about it, you don't know. But the accuracy and the way he goes about it, I'm assuming just from all we heard that Mac Jones was in play in this whole thing with Zach Wilson, right? Was in play.
Yes.
Until the Jets decided to take Zach Wilson. And listen, people out of their minds, if we're really, Zach Wilson's got enormous ability, and he's going to be fine, I think. He's got a wild-ass skill set. He does. But his skill set's got to come to fruition, and you got to make it all come together. Mac Jones is doing it all, and it's coming together, and that team's damn well may make the playoffs. I'm just telling you, they may make the playoffs. And he's got, if you're Bill Belichick, you got to take a deep sigh and say, we probably found a guy who is very similar. I'm not saying he's Brady, but the way they play, pocket, don't escape much, ball comes out quickly. The coach can give him anything, and they can handle changing plays at the line. And Mac Jones is a better player now than Brady was as a rookie. Far better player than Brady was as a rookie. Now, I don't know 20 years from now if he's still going to be in the league, but it just I think if you saw the way the program, what you say, damn, Mac Jones really can do the same things. He's doing the same things on a lesser level because they're not throwing as much that he was doing in Alabama. Getting this, the accuracy and the football IQ, I think they probably would. I don't think they regret taking Trey Lance, but if we redid it and they were sitting there at 3 and the Jets at 2, I think that they'd sit there and they would say, maybe Mac Jones is mature enough to handle a Jets team that's not very good right now. We'll save the future talent, Zach Wilson and Trey Lance, for the next guys to come along. So whether it's the 49ers or the Jets, I think you would have to consider it greatly just because I like evidence, and evidence tells me Mac Jones is a monster right now. It just does.
Well, I know one thing. He was the best quarterback on the field Sunday. It wasn't Baker Mayfield, who I did not like what I saw. I watched that whole game. I thought it was a really bad game. The good news is his wife, Emily, hasn't been on social media yet this week, so that's a positive. I say that because I know you go on radio every week in Cleveland and talk to those crazy fans, and I mean loyal, great fans. But that was bad. I thought Cleveland was going to show a little bit more after what they did a week ago on the road in Cincinnati. But boy, oh boy, that was, if I'm a Browns fan and I'm looking at that game and I'm like, man, one step forward, 2 steps back.
Yeah, Grant, it doesn't matter who the coach has been, right? They've made strides. So Stefanski's done a hell of a job with them and managing egos along the way. I'm shocked at how bad their defense is. I honestly am. It is. Now, I know how good Myles Garrett is, but I am shocked because when you looked at personnel on their team going in, offense and defense, their roster, it was one of the 5 or 3 best in the league this year on paper. Now you got to produce, and we expected Baker. And Grant, I'm going to say something that I've been a Mayfield guy. I like walk-on mentality. I like that tough. I like when you got to overcome. I like all, and I think he's got skill set. He was accurate in college, big plays, and I'll tell you, though, for the first time, I get concerned about like you said, give me 2 weeks and then 1 bad, and then another average, and then 1 good, and then 1 great, and then 2 average. I get concerned about that. And it's not just Mayfield. It isn't. It's not just him. But that's the burden you bear. So if you asked me today, and like I said, I am a fan, and I haven't said this in Cleveland yet, but I did say it on Twitter and with one of the guys who's a host. And I am not a Mayfield basher. I'm sure as hell not an apologist, but I'm sure as hell not I don't believe he's a bust. But right now, if I was the front office and the head coach, knowing the injuries and everything that's gone on, I still give the all-in Baker we trust, and I get it, and I'm on board. But I don't want to. I don't want to. At some point in time, you say, well, man, if I keep beating it with him, but like I've done it for Darnold, you say, well, Darnold's not a good player right now, so you don't want to lose credibility. Keep saying he's going to the Pro Bowl, right? So you got to be fair, even though you may like a guy. I don't know, Grant, if I could. Now you got to say, okay, if you're not going to pay Baker, who would you pay?
Right.
You got to, what's next in line? Baker Mayfield has shown me flashes that he's a franchise quarterback, and at times more than flashes. He's also shown me that at times he's very average and he's replaceable. So the question I have is, let's just throw it out there. If you decided as a front office that you were not going to pay him $30 million a year for 5 or 6 years.
Yep.
Because I don't know today, Grant, and I'll finish my point after I ask you this. If I said $30 million a year for 5 years, 75% of it guaranteed, are you doing it if you're Cleveland today?
I'm not.
Okay. What if this is nobody? There's no rumor about this. There's nobody talking about it. But I know one free agent quarterback that's already under contract. That what if they decided not to pay him? Because I don't think this draft's any good. I think it's average at best when it comes to quarterbacks.
Right.
Average. What if I told you there's a 25-year-old quarterback out there that if the civil suits get settled and he clears the trade with the Texans, if you were the Cleveland Browns, would you offer Mayfield 2 number 1s and 2 number 2s for Watson?
I would, and I think that puts them as the best team in the division with their running game and with what Watson can do, assuming that he can play. I think that elevates Cleveland to the best team in the division.
And maybe not, and when I say not close, maybe a pretty easy choice, right? I mean,
yes.
If you're doing that. Now, I'm not throwing that out there. I don't want to – now, Pete Mayfield fan. I'm a Mayfield believer.
Yeah.
But if we're not – here's what I'm saying. I guess my point is if you and I – if you're my head coach and I'm the GM, or you're the GM, I'm the head coach, and we sit down and talk and say, okay, we see this guy. You take the risk. If we let him go, he becomes a star somewhere else. He's shown star qualities here. The players and the fans love him, but it's divided. You're not a fence sitter with Mayfield. You either love him in that town or you want him out.
Yep.
Or you think he's just a good quarterback, not a franchise guy. So if they've come to the conclusion that can't pay him $30 million, not going to do it. Well, and you say 30, that's way too much. Well, that's what the guys are commanding now. And you're about 10 million shy of Prescott and Watson and about 15 million shy of Mahomes. So the best of the best, right? So if you don't know if he's the best of the best, and you're saying, I always think if there's too many ifs by a name, if you have too many ifs, you can't do it. If you only have one if and you say he's our guy and I guarantee it, then you pay him and you move on and you lock his ass up and you go. I'm just saying, but if you aren't going to do it, Watson's got to approve it, but there is one guy out there who brings you to a different – because Watson's a better quarterback than Mayfield right now.
No question. But here's what drives me crazy about Baker Mayfield. He teases you a lot. I mean, look at last year after the Odell injury. You said, okay, there's your franchise quarterback. That's the number 1 pick in the draft. That's the guy we thought we had. And we've seen it this year. But you see, to me, I'll take a consistent quarterback every single week, even if that quarterback is not up here. I don't care if the quarterback's a lesser quarterback. If I know what I'm going to get week in, week out, I'll take a quarterback with less talent than a guy that teases me, who on some Sundays you're like, holy shit, wow. But to me, that's not what the NFL is about. The quarterback position to me is about consistency. And I'm not talking about Tom Brady, Joe Montana, but I'm talking about a level of play that as a coach and as an organization, you pretty much know what you're going to get week to week. I don't get that with Baker Mayfield.
You know you got a chance to go to a Super Bowl. You know you're going to be a playoff contender every year, and he's good enough and has guts enough to win in February is what you're talking about. Yes. Maybe not going to lead the league in passing. Maybe not going to be the most spectacular. But when I show up every week, that it's the aberration that he plays poorly, not the consistent poor play, right? Where it's like a Dow Jones, up and friggin' down, right? and I am it's like a dry hump. You talk about the tees. Man, it feels good when you're an 18-year-old or such. Maybe that's a little late for the dry hump, but you know what I'm saying. You're like, I don't do that. But man, boy, oh boy, I got to take my jeans
not in the middle of a gulp. Do I need a line like that? Okay, okay. You got to at least
don't dry dock me with this tease, Grant. Right?
God.
But Grant, I don't want to quit believing in him, man. I don't. And I'm not willing to. I'm not a switch flipper like that, like a flopper. I'm just not. I'm going to ride it out until he proves me he can't. I'm just saying because if you say, Sean, do you like Baker Mayfield? I'm going to say, yeah, I do. If you're going to say, is he the reason winning or losing? He's not the only reason they win, but he's not just the reason they lose either. They're not playing well. But I do. I want to believe in him because I like him, and I think I love his swagger, but the swagger's got to keep matching the consistency, or vice versa.
I'm going to bring up Matthew Stafford, because to me, we're now talking about a veteran quarterback. And I know a lot of people make excuses for him because he was on a Lions team and just a dysfunctional franchise and personnel and everything. But now all of a sudden he's got all of his toys with him. He's got a brilliant offensive coach. He's got everything going for him. And yet, and again, I'm not killing the guy over 2 weeks, but the quarterback that I've seen the last 2 weeks, if I'm a Rams fan, I don't have any confidence going into a possible playoff game. And again, he does have the history in Detroit of doing the same thing. So it's a different level because Baker's still a relatively young quarterback. Stafford's a veteran. But what's the difference?
You know why? Because the ceiling is not the big number breakthrough ceiling. Stafford is the guy you go and watch on campus in high school one time, Grant, in hoops or in football, and he's in a pair of shorts and a T-shirt or in a uniform, whatever, and you watch him throw, and you see about 5 throws, and you're like, fuck this, man. This guy's – I want him. Without watching game tape, right? Now, I know he's got a high football IQ, and I've spent time talking to Matthew years ago, and I'm a believer. But there's no evidence that tells you just because he went to the Rams – that he's going to dominate late in the season. Because I'll tell you what happens when you're used to losing. It becomes when you're used to losing, it's hard to get out of that losing. Not that he's a loser, but to shift it and say, no, I'm not there anymore. Just like we put people there, you got to stay out of it yourself. Listen, when you just talk about from point A to point B throwing a ball, there ain't 4 guys in the league better at it than him. But without a run game, which he knows about in Detroit, well, I mean, what's going to happen? Oh, they got Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey, and I mean, I know they're great players, but 3 of them, I need 11 of them playing pretty good football, at least 8 of them, or 3 average. So, the Rams are going to be fine. But yeah, I understand the questions on Stafford, and I do understand the question on Baker. I'm going to ride this Baker thing out. But if you're Cleveland and you get to a point, let's say you get to the playoffs or don't make the wild card, Grant. Let's say you get shut out late. If you get with the injuries, all the things, and I know Baker's banged up too. I completely understand. I get you. But if you're Cleveland, you do have to have a come to Jesus with each other, the front office and at the end. If this continues, now if you go to the playoffs and he kicks ass and goes on and has a 7-game run, I think you say, all right, I'm satisfied. I know what he brings me. Bingo. But I do think there's some ifs right now for front office and coaching staff. And I think there's got to be some answers between now and I said going into the year, to me, this was a huge pivotal year for him to get paid the huge money. And I'm talking the $30+ million a year for a long-term contract in Cleveland. He fits Cleveland. The question is, will the performance match what they want?
A couple of minutes ago, you used 3 words. One word was bust, another was average, and another one was replaceable. So when I look at Sam Darnold, is he a bust? He's clearly replaceable, and it may happen this week, although we know about his injuries. And I know you've been a big proponent of Sam. We blamed it on the Jets, and now he's in Carolina with this great guru and everything else, and we're still waiting to see it. So at what point do we use the word, and maybe bust is too strong of a word, but because of where he went in the draft, that's what we would call him. We would call him a bust. How close is he to being a bust?
As we sit today, he's a bust. And it pain that you have zero. I mean, well, but people have zero idea how much that pains me to admit it, because not admit that I may have been wrong, or thousands of us may have been wrong on Darnold. But okay, he wasn't well coached in New York. He goes, and Matt Rule and Joe Brady know how to coach. Yep. Okay, so you tell me, well, it's injuries. Okay, well, I need a guy. Availability is important to me too. I need that. Listen, His arm ability and off-schedule stuff is phenomenal. It really is, Grant. But that's fine and dandy. But I got to win games, and I got to be more consistent. He's got a major issue and a roadblock somewhere with forcing balls to places you have no fucking business throwing it in. None.
Correct.
And that part of it, and you know who had that? And I'm not saying they're the same guy, but you know who had Jay Cutler? Cutler believed in his arm so much. They're different personalities.
Same with Jameis Winston.
He believed in his arm so much that you'll say, and you know who else believed in his arm so much but was a different cat because his tough and his durability is Favre. See, Favre had the ball. He'll throw 5 picks on your ass. He didn't care. And then the next week he'll throw 5 touchdowns and he'll just keep on slinging. He'll sling his way through it. but he had a unique ability. And big arm guys, that can become a problem because you think, damn, I can throw it through a car wash. The problem is there's times when the car wash, when they bring it down and close it, Sam thinks he can get it there when the car wash is closed after hours. And so
Jeff George was like that. Jeff George.
Enormous talent. Yeah, what's that?
Jeff George was exactly.
Oh,
Jeff George.
And a phenomenal arm. And I love Jeff, man. He's a freaking great dude. But I'm telling you, to admit that he's about now, if you're saying, Sean, is he going to be a light career bust? I'm not going to go there yet. I'm just not with Sam Darnold. But if you're saying today, Sean, is Sam Darnold a bust as the number 3 pick in the draft, when a lot of people at times said they should have taken him over the running back Barkley, right? Some wanted him over Baker Mayfield. I would say that you have no choice but to call him that. He's changed teams. He's been benched. He's been hurt. He's benched again. He went to 2 offensive gurus and Matt Rule and Joe Brady, and it's still not fixed. Then he's banged up, and they had to go get Cam, and they're playing P.J. Walker. The problem is you can only leave your glove out of the mound so many times before somebody else comes out and picks it up. This season is going to cost Sam Darnold a lot of money, Grant. I hope he fixes it, and I hope he gets back and kicks ass. So as we sit today, you would lose credibility if you didn't say, judging from what we thought and where he is now and what we heard and all the expectations, yes, he's a bust right now.
I'm not a fan of anointing best teams in the NFL in November, but we have fun and we do this. We talked about this last week because, again, you look at a Dallas team that got manhandled a week ago against Denver at home, both sides of the line of scrimmage, and then they go out and they just embarrass Atlanta. You look at Arizona, who without a backup quarterback, without Hopkins, the injury to Watt, they went into San Francisco and annihilated the 49ers. They come home with pretty much the same personnel that they had against the Niners, and they get completely embarrassed by Carolina. So I don't read a lot into individual Sundays, but if I'm looking at the big picture right now, okay, and you and I had a great conversation about this last week, because who the hell thought that Tampa would go into Washington and lose? Are they starting to, are there a couple of kinks in their armor? But I'm looking at Dallas and I'm looking at Green Bay, and I'm asking myself, are they not the 2 best teams right now in the conference? And if I try to forecast without looking at any potential injuries, just what they have right now, are we looking at a Green Bay Dallas NFC Championship game?
Grant, yeah. I was, when you were going through this, I'm saying, is he going to ask me who I think the best teams are? And I would have said Green Bay. And it's not because Rodgers. I know what I'm getting from him.
I love their
CJ
defense.
Dillon will be fine with Aaron Jones.
I love their defense. Right.
I do too. That's the next level that they needed, so Rodgers doesn't have to play perfect every week. With Dallas, their defense has gotten better. They score on defense. They turn you over. And I'll take Prescott any day of the week. I mean, I think he's a phenomenal player. And we know they got the ability to kill you run game. And they do. They can wear you out. They can pressure you. The Cowboys, this is giddy may not be the word, as optimistic for a Cowboy Super Bowl appearance since Aikman left. And I'm being serious about that.
Yeah, I know you are.
Even when Romo was there, and I love Tony. But Prescott's a better player. He's a better player.
Sure.
And they're doing something there, man. They can mix physical, wear you out in the end, and they can finesse you to death when necessary. So, yeah. Now, I'm going to tell you, I am not, and I think if people do, they're stupid. I love when Bruce Arians says, I got a dumb football team. They're the reigning Super Bowl champs. Yeah. He went all in on Brady early last year, and Brady responded like we knew he would. Brady understands the gamesmanship of this and what Bruce is doing, right? While some coaches say, yeah, and I'm so fucking tired of hearing a coach every week say, I didn't prepare my team well enough. Well, why didn't you figure that out on Thursday? On Saturday, you told everybody the game plan's great, we're ready to go. Then on Sunday after the game, you told us you didn't prepare them well enough. Well, put some onus and responsibility on the players too. Is Bruce just says, fuck it, I got it. My team's done right now. And he doesn't mean that, but it's a call to the fellas to say, it's time again, like after Kansas City kicked our ass last year, and then we turned it around after that. We're at that point. We need something that says, pick this shit up. And so I love Bruce instead of – Bruce ain't giving me coach speak. They suck, I suck, he sucks, and we are a dumb football team. We better get it fixed. I'm not going off them, Grant, because I believe they're going to go on one of those 5 or 6 gamers where they're – put it this way, their whole goal – is like the Celtics and the Lakers of old. Play hard, but just hit that ground right when the postseason's about to start, and I'll see you in a 7-game series, motherfuckers. Let's go, right?
Yep.
That's them. And if they get there, you cannot tell me you'd pick against them. If Tampa gets to the second round of the playoffs, you know damn well you're going to have a hard time picking against them because of that dude who takes snaps and his DNA, right? But today, if you said, Sean, give me the pecking order, Dallas and Green Bay, you take one, I'll take the other. Fair enough, I can do it. Then we go probably 4 NFC teams, maybe before the best AFC team, maybe, because I don't know if it's Buffalo one week. Tennessee's really damn good. And their resume says, we keep kicking ass. You keep telling us we're not. We beat good teams on the road, at home. I think we're all sitting here saying, yeah, sustain him without Derrick Henry. But damn, is Vrabel coaching his ass off.
He is.
I love it. So they you got to throw them in there. They'd obviously be in your Power 5. But for the two best teams for me, if Tennessee played Green Bay or Dallas right now, even in Nashville, in a playoff game without Derrick Henry, I would pick Dallas or Green Bay to win that game because the quarterbacks are a bit more spectacular, although we should put more respect on Tannehill's name with what he does as well. But, yeah, I'm with you. Today, the Dallas Cowboys and the Green Bay Packers would be my Super Bowl front runner. Yeah. But I picked Buffalo and Tampa before the season, and I picked Tampa to win it again back-to-back, and I'm not going off that. I think Brady's team still got something left for him.
Dude, I could never do what you do. Because I'm from New York. I'm a diehard Yankees fan, New York Giants. I could never fucking wear a hat of another team. And I'm looking at you, Mr. Red Sox fan with a fucking D-back side on.
I understand a jersey.
Can't do it.
So you go. I'm one of those guys. I go into. I love the fact this will be a good fight for us. I like it.
Yeah.
Diehard Sox fan, right? Yeah. The only hat I don't have. I mean, Grant. Honestly, I got about 300 hats, 350.
No
hats.
Shit. Wow.
I do. It's kind of a hat collection. I mean, I'm like a pro shop at the PGA Tour Superstore, right? Titleist and Arizona Diamondbacks. I just like the hats. When I go to a new ballpark, my memento is grab a hat, right? Or when I go to a team, I do. I like hats. I won't buy, it's hard for me to have a Steeler hat growing up as a Raider fan with those old rivalries, right? And I respect the Steelers. As a Red Sox guy, you know what hat I don't have? Yankee hat.
And I know you don't have a UCLA hat.
Fuck no, I don't have a UCLA hat. Okay, no, I don't. You're exactly. God bless my favorite. I love my man Terry Donahue. God rest his soul. Who just passed away this summer. I love Terry. I love Terry Donahue, and my mother loved him to death. So no, not blasphemy on my guy who I love beyond belief, and my boy, my guy Troy Aikman. But fuck no, I don't have a UCLA hat. I never will. It's not allowed in my house, just like the Yankees. But I wear it. What threat are these guys right now? They're not. Okay, I don't mean it. I'll wear a Blackhawks hat. But I can't go Yankees, and I can't go. I don't have Yankees. I don't have Steelers, and I love the Steelers. But I can't, as a Raider guy growing up, as you know.
No, you can't.
In those times, it's just hard because those were such great.
Yeah.
I taught at Jack Lambert's football camp a couple of years, and he's like the most intimidating dude on the planet. When you sit down having a beer when you're teaching at his camp, you don't want to screw up at all when you were teaching at Jack Lambert's football camp. Trust me. If you showed up late, you're like, Jack may have me down there running lines if I'm late. So, yeah, I won't have – I have no UCLA hat. I have no Yankee hat.
No, you can't.
I respect both.
No.
But you can't.
I had a serviceman come to my house about 10 years ago, and he had a Red Sox hat on. And I said, I'm sorry, you're not allowed in my house. And he goes, excuse me, I'm here to – and I'm like, not until you take that hat off. And there was no bullshit. And then I picked my son up from high school one day, and his friend is a diehard Red Sox fan, and he had a Red Sox shirt on, and he wanted to ride home. I go, he's not getting a ride home. I go, he needs to take a shirt off. He goes, Dad, what's he going to do with his shirt? I go, I'll tell you what. Tell him to take his shirt off, go take it, and put it in the trunk so I can't see it. But that fucking shirt is not coming inside my car. Now, you'll appreciate this. This is a classic. My youngest son signed him up for Little League Baseball when he was 6 years old. And we signed him up, and he's sitting in the back seat, and we're driving home, and it's raining hard, and the windshield wipers are going back and forth. He goes, Daddy? I said, yeah. He goes, what team am I going to be on? I said, we don't know yet. We won't know for a couple of weeks. And he says, Daddy? I go, yeah. He goes, what happens if I'm on the Red Sox? And I look in the rearview mirror and I go, then you're not playing this year. And it was real silent for like 15 seconds. And all of a sudden he goes, Daddy? I said, yes. He goes, are there trays in Little League? I mean, that's like, so I don't.
Would you have done it? Would you have made him go to another team?
Yeah, there's no way I couldn't. There's no way I could have my son wearing a Red Sox uniform. Couldn't do it. No, couldn't do it.
I guess what I'll be wearing when baseball. Well, from here on out, every fucking show. Are you going to cancel the show if I have a Red Sox hat on?
No, because you're not in. You're in Texas. I'm in. Whoa. You're in Texas. I'm in Florida. But if you came over to my house, I'm sorry, no fucking way.
Well, when I invite you to my house for the tomahawks and cigars and scotch,
but that's your house. No. No. But and you know what? Out of respect for you, I wouldn't even do it. No.
That's the other side. I won't wear it on.
No,
I would never show up at your house with a Red Sox hat on. Right.
I would never go to your house and with anything Yankee because it's not even funny. It would be lack of respect. I would never do that to you or anybody else.
I love fans like that. I do. Now, when people say, "Well, you got all these hats," my hats are hat collection. Make no mistake about it. As I've said before, as a flagship station of the Astros, make no mistake about it. I'm a Red Sox fan. Astros, when the Red Sox
of course,
are out of
it, fans appreciate
Astros,
that.
That's exactly right. But I also don't rub victories in when the Red Sox beat the Astros or if they lose, in a game or like when they won the World Series and beat the Astros on the way. I don't rub it in to Astros fans or my coworkers. I would never do that. I'm a respectful winner. I hate losing, but I'll be respectful in the process. But I love that to know that that's diehard, brother.
Oh,
and so Diamond, there's no threat to your Yankees, so we're good to go, man. So we're good to go.
All right. Well, we were both right on Oklahoma losing to Baylor, so now they're out of the picture. They're not going to be in there. You weren't surprised. I mean, you talked about how you thought that would be a really tough game for Oklahoma. And Baylor, how about Baylor, man? I mean, and I didn't watch that game. I read about it, but I heard they just beat up on them.
I watched the entire thing, Grant, and it was Dave Aranda is a good football coach, man.
Yep.
If you told me today, as I see this, and it changes every week, I can do a lot worse. His name I've heard it filter about the Trojans and LSU, obviously.
Yeah.
Where he was a defensive coordinator. I love his demeanor.
Mm-hmm.
I love and for instance, Lincoln Riley's pissed that the fans are running on the field. You didn't see it. I'll tell you exactly what happened. There's a second to go. They got to kneel down to end the game legally. So they go into the locker room, bring their defense back out. You don't have to have 11 guys to play defense. You just have to have one. But they made them line up. And the broadcast, everybody's going through, it's just going to be, you're just going to you're going to kneel down anyway. The game's over. That's what Dave Aranda kicks field goal.
The field goal. Right. I read about that.
But his reasoning is it's
point
tight
differential
with Oklahoma State. Right. It's like the third tiebreaker. Now,
yeah.
If you're the opposing coach, you're like, is it really going to come down to that? But Dave Aranda's like, I really don't give a fuck what you think. He's not saying I kicked a field goal and he doesn't have to. He feels like they have to explain it's tiebreaker, and I'm just taking care of it because he's not there to be your best friend. He's there to win games and to give his team the best chance. And I understand. Now, Lincoln probably shouldn't get too mad at it because those dudes will hang 70 on you and not blink. Okay.
That's right.
And I love Lincoln Riley too. But if you told me the SC would offer Dave Aranda $7 million for 5 years, I'm going to go out on a limb right now and say Dave Aranda's done at Baylor when this season's over. How about that?
You'd pick him up at the airport, huh? You'd pick him up at the airport.
I'll pick him up at the airport. I'll call 10 miles over broken glass to hire him. Okay. I'll whatever he needs. There's a few guys like that, but I think what he's done, Baylor does a great job of getting the next coach. Have you noticed that? Art Browse, who's the Texas high school legend. I know they went through hell, but Art Browse was great when they needed Art Browse on the field, right? Yep. All that stuff goes on with them. Bring in Matt Rule. What's he do? Changes the program around. And he leaves Matt Rule. You say, here we go again. Dave Aranda got them in a position to be the Big 12 champions and to keep going. But they defended. They made it miserable on Oklahoma's passing game. They were nasty. And after what happened at TCU, he's that guy. They were humiliated. You probably didn't want to be on the practice field after that beatdown that TCU gave him, and then they responded. So I would love to see it, but Baylor is as good as the program is. Guys like that, it's going to have a hard time keeping him. Whereas Jimbo Fisher, Jimbo's not leaving.
Hey,
Jimbo's staying at Texas A&M.
Hey, speaking of coaches, did you hear the fucking reporter after the Alabama game asked fucking Nick Saban if you're worried about the slow start? They won 57-3, and I loved his response. It was an absolute classic.
Oh, and he just at the end, it's like that was a bad question.
Right?
What do you say? So that's an awful question. That's not a good question. Yeah, because they hung 3 points on him in the first quarter. Well, do you need to start faster really? And then but Nick's dig at Florida too. Hey, how'd that Samford Florida game? How's that going?
Right.
Oh my gosh, they were Florida's celebrating after that game like they just beat Alabama and won the national championship. They beat Samford, which they were damn near 40-point favorites to beat him in the 30s. So Nick is friggin' priceless. Now, you want to hear the worst question in sports history by a media guy? I want you to go, when you get off this, go look at Twitter and look at my quote tweet on the Steve Sarkisian video.
Okay, and I'll just warn you of this, Grant. You and I know how I hate long questions from media people, from any of us. In radio, I hate when somebody asks a minute question. The question was a minute long, but when you hear the content of this question, raise Nick Saban's question by 10 and double it. And you're gonna, and I don't know who it is, but I said, you know what? I award that interview. I don't know who it was. You couldn't see him. You could only hear the voice. I award him no points, and may God have mercy on his soul. It was horrendous. When you hear it, you're going to say, we can't, I got to take this guy's credential away. This is a horrible question. So, yeah, those things. But Saban handled it like only, Saban could, and Belichick. Make you feel like, dude, come a little bit more prepared to ask a question after we just hung damn near 60 on a team, and they scored 3. Save it, right? I want to talk a lot about this on Thursday, but since I teased it at the beginning of this show, if I told you either Ohio State or Oregon would lose this weekend, which team would you pick to lose?
Say Ohio State plays who?
Michigan State at home, and Oregon's at Utah.
They got Michigan State, right?
Oregon is at Utah, and Michigan State is at Ohio State.
Right, yeah, and Ohio State's Michigan State. I would say I think Ohio State's speed is going to give Michigan State some problems, but here's where Michigan State can equalize this thing. Kenneth Walker, you know what I'm looking for in this game? A Kenneth Walker, Derrick Henry, late in the season, Nick Saban handed it to him 40 times in a game and just said, dude, sorry, it's the ball isn't heavy, we're just going, right? 40 times. He did it. I remember in Derrick Henry that one year, he did it like 2 or 3 of the last 4 games, something. There was 40, like 38, 44.
Yep.
Give it to the big fella because you need to do. Stroud's jumped to the forefront of the Heisman Trophy race. You've got to limit their perimeter people are phenomenal. So I don't know if Michigan State team speed-wise, they're going to have to dominate that. And Walker's going to have to, put it this way, Heisman weekend for him. He goes in and runs roughshod over Ohio State. You can. It's a big right. I know Kyle Whittingham. He was a host of mine when I went on my recruiting trip in college. I think I've told you this.
Wow.
He was tough as hell then. He's tough as hell now. Oregon's a better football team. But Salt Lake City, the physicality, the way they play, I'm just telling you, keep it in space and make sure you stay in space against him because he has a way of getting his team. Now, their offense plays bad. Oregon could hang 40 on him and boat race him. But so for my money right now, Grant, knowing the Pac-12, I think the personnel, the speed at Ohio State is relentless. Now, Oregon's got plenty of it too. What I love about this is Cristobal's teams usually know, Oregon's teams are usually known as speed, right?
Yep.
Awesome uniforms, but let's not forget that's a substance-filled team. But think about this, Whittingham, you got Whittingham, linebacker, tough as hell, wants to wear you out. Mario Cristobal, one of the great line coaches in the league as a head coach. And it's going to be, I'm wondering which one's going to quit being stubborn, right? I'm not letting Kyle Whittingham physically wear my team out. And I'm sure the respect is great for each. And it'll come down to this, whose quarterback's going to play better? Honestly, Grant, in these games, because turn it over 2 times and you're in. I would probably say I would give Utah in Salt Lake City a better chance to win. But it will not shock me if both teams get beat. It will not shock me. But I still think both teams, with their perimeter speed, advantage Oregon and Ohio State. But if we come out of this week and say we had 2 huge upsets in the top 5, you shouldn't be overly, oh my gosh, after what you've seen this year.
Final thing for you. Does anybody in Houston give a shit about the Rockets anymore?
Not right now, Grant. They care about Jalen Green, and they care about the reason they're getting a bit of this pass from last year, the Harden and all the stuff going on, right? And Steven Sass, but it's the way they're losing is so bad, Grant. I mean, I understand youth, but when you turn it over 23 times and then you get beat by 33 points by Memphis the following night on a back-to-backer.
Anybody call up on your show? Do you get calls on the Rockets at all on your show? Not at all. 0?
We'll get calls leading into this, like during the draft, And leading into the season, you'll get a Jalen Green. People were pumped about it because the kid's really gifted. But as is with the case with any young players, they rely more on basketball skill than basketball IQ in certain situations. And they don't have that lockdown like a Chris Paul who waltzes into a young team and says, we're going to do it different and leads it. They don't have that. Kevin Porter Jr. is still learning to play point guard. Jalen Green's new in the league.
I got you.
So the guys who got to touch the ball all the time are still learning it. And Steven Silas is in the infancy of his career as a lifetime guy. So, but Grant, to answer your question, it is a non-talking. Every now and then you'll get a guy who wants to talk. They suck. They're 1-13. We got to change coaches. But for the majority of it, if you were to talk still, Carlos Correa 4 hours a day, they'll do it. Verlander and Carlos Correa 4 hours a day. Texans talk with second, so they want to know who to hate. And the Rockets are just nondescript because, well, you're 1-13 and you're young. But they are going to be patient with the Rockets, the fans are, because they think that the assets are going to start to go into place. But they are so far. Grant, they're on pace to win like 8 games.
I know. It's embarrassing.
8 or 9 games, as you know.
Yeah.
So
no, I got you.
No, it's not a topic of conversation like it would be in Boston or New York right now.
Sure. All right, man. We'll talk to you in a couple of days. Great show. Appreciate you.
Dude, you look good, refreshed, ready to go, ready for Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
You're the man, brother. I love it.
All right,
Appreciate
love you, man.
Hey, by the way, I meant to say one thing. By the way, I want to end the show like this. Go Sox and go fuck yourself. There you go.
Oh, just wait till Thursday. See ya.